Ah yes, the internet, specifically Nintendo internet. It was a huge part of my life and along with many others as well, particularly the Wi-Fi era from the Wii up to the Switch. While there was a ton of other things Nintendo did earlier on, I won't be taking a in-depth look at those, particularly because I don't exactly own really any of them, but I will at least mention them and say exactly what they've done and how exactly you can still use them to this day. Particularly, I'm going to be talking about in-depth the Wi-Fi services later on in the video, about how you can use them. I'm going to be taking a look mainly at the official way, and some people might be thinking that, oh, you know, they've been discontinued because it's official. Well, actually, no, you can actually do a decent amount of stuff with it still, surprisingly. Of course, I will be talking about fan works as well to be able to revive things because, well, there's still a lot more you can do with fan work, so we're going to jump right into it. So let's get right into the demo reel, I guess you could say, of the Nintendo's early years. Not really sure what to call this because it's from the 80s up to the 2000s, being the Famicom up to the GameCube. Alright, we're going to go over Nintendo's early endeavors for internet play, which there is quite a bit, so I'll try to be quick, but yeah. So starting off with the Famicom, or the NES, which technically it was only available in Japan, and there were some ideas to bring it to America, the online functionality of the Famicom for the NES. In Japan, they had the Family Computer Network system, which you could use for horse racing, banking, and while that was all you could really do, there was plans to be able to play things such as Go online, but due to how slow internet was back then, it was hard to really keep a stable connection. But hey, that was something that was happening in the late 80s. So while it was technically gaming, it was mainly used for activities. That's at least something that's kind of neat. But this worked until 2015. That's right, over 20 years later, you could still use your Famicom online. Man, nowadays, hearing Nintendo keeping an online service, well, on for a long time is a rare thing. In fact, I don't know if it'll ever happen again, so that's pretty freaking cool. The Super Famicom might be the most obscure console because of how much lost media there is thanks to the Satellaview add-on. You could connect your Super Famicom to satellite. You could download all sorts of games, exchange records, high scores, and even listen to radio broadcasts. Yeah, that's right. You think it's obscure for Nintendo to have an alarm clock? Well, make it happen, Nintendo. Make it happen. We need that Nintendo radio right now to bring off the Super Famicom, and I'm sure people will spend over $200 for it because, well, they're already spending $100 for an alarm clock. While I don't have either of these, I do at least have a cartridge that has some sort of functionality with the Satellaview, and I can't do a whole lot with it, but hey, at least I can play a game involving horse raising. Yeah, and Nintendo in Japan loves their horses. Randnet was a service that launched in the late 90s for you to be able to take your Nintendo 64 online, but catch being you needed the 64 disk drive. In doing so, you could send email, access the web, and play some games online. What is neat is recently I just saw there was footage of someone being able to access Randnet today, and I'll leave that footage in the description as for how you can do that as well. Now we have the mobile Game Boy adapter, something you could use to be able to connect your phone to your Game Boy to be able to go online with it, being the Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance. It's only supported for about over a year, and it was mainly used for Pokemon Crystal. However, people could not really use this because, well, it was expensive in general with high fees, and the audience it was being catered toward just didn't have a lot of money. So, yeah, there's a reason why it went down to obscurity and it crashed and burned right away. Mainly this is used for Pokemon Crystal to be able to get things such as mystery gifts online, so this is really the first time you could get a mystery gift in this form, such as the GS Ball to obtain Celebi, or exchange Battle Tower data and download more trainers. So, man, that's insane. Just thinking the Game Boy having some sort of functionality like this. And it was cool because later on in the Virtual Console release of Pokemon Crystal, they unlocked this feature, albeit it wasn't through, well, mobile Game Boy adapter. They just simply gave you the GS Ball. That is pretty neat that Nintendo did something like that, although the Virtual Console's now been delisted, so thanks, Nintendo. The GameCube is such an obscure one because you think at this point we would have steady online connection. I mean, Sega was doing it. The Xbox was doing it. Nintendo, they didn't really do it still. We had the broadband adapter and the GameCube modem. Two different aspects that technically, one wasn't really online, it was just a hyperbole local play, which is LAN play, and then you have the actual online, which Nintendo's games didn't even use. In fact, it was Sega only in North America that used the actual online functionality for Phantasy Star, well, online. There was a bunch of other games released in Japan that used the actual online functionality, but once again, yeah, that's Japan, not North America, so hey, that's alright. And then also what's interesting as well, the fact that Nintendo didn't actually host these online servers. They basically said, hey, why don't you go out there and, host your own servers, which Sega did, and you can actually make your own server to this day, because I'm pretty sure none of Sega's servers are up, so if you want to still play Phantasy Star Online, go out there and hook up your servers. Yeah, Nintendo basically said, we're cool with allowing you to host your own server. This is actually a really rare thing that Nintendo has done, and we've never seen them do it again. I wonder why they never have done it again. Oh, that makes perfect sense. I never actually got to experience this firsthand, but I did actually get to use the broadband adapter on multiple GameCube consoles at a convention, where I won a Double Dash tournament and got 3rd place. Twice. I got it twice. Okay, so the Wii U. Man, what a great console, I have to say, in terms of, just library-wise. So many cool virtual console games. There was some pretty interesting stuff to download. It's too bad it essentially was it failed upon release, you could say. Technically, you could say, but, yeah, no. But the Wii U services, I should say real quick up front. The internet browser does not technically count, because the internet browser will work as long as the websites you can access are updated or aren't updated. But as time goes on, it's inevitable the internet browser will just entirely not work anymore, because the older version of Google or whatever search engine you may use, or any website at all. But there are still websites out there you can still access, maybe say from the 90s, that have terrible security or something, but I'm not here to talk about, that or something. Just here to tell you that the internet browser is an entirely separate entity from what we're talking about with Nintendo services, first-party stuff. Now, if you try to play an online game, it is going to say error, because those were, well, technically shut down. And of course, with the eShop, as I showed in another video, you can still connect with the eShop. You can still re-download things. That was a big misconception that people seem to not understand, is that the eShop still works if you have downloaded something or purchased something, previously. You can still re-download things. That includes, well, I guess technically everything is free, I should say, because if you click purchase before, then yeah, you're going to be able to get them again. But the big thing here that is interesting, when you try to connect to any sort of online game, it will say that this service has been discontinued. And what that really is alleviating to is that the servers are still online. They're not actually shut down. It's just Nintendo is preventing you from connecting to them. This can be rung true with the fact that people were still online for both the 3DS and the Wii U Nintendo Network servers way far beyond, days, weeks, months. I think there was even someone that was going on for over a year. And that's because Nintendo just simply closed the door to prevent people from getting in. And, once your system either something happened, it died, it crashed, it aired, something happens, then, that's been the case. So the servers are actually still up. It's just Nintendo doesn't want you to access them. And honestly, I'm sorry to say that's kind of scummy of them. The fact that, they're still out there, that's showing you can still connect to them. And the fact that you could have still played on them, but Nintendo just doesn't want you to access them because, well, they want you to buy $60 for Luigi's Mansion, what do you call it? 2, what it's called Dark Moon, when you could have paid $20 for free online, you got to pay $60 plus tax. And then the online, which is, yeah, there's a free trial, but it's you're looking at nearly $100 for the complete experience at that point, and that's just insane. But I suppose I'm not here to talk about Switch 2 prices and just Nintendo prices in general, because that's been a topic for good over a decade now, really. But we're here to talk about what can you still use, what can you still access, and the friends list is something that still works, besides, of course, being able to download things. And if you open up the friends list right here, and it is a little strange compared to how things are. The music always sounds so different compared to the gamepad screen, I have to say, which I will play some of that right here. I don't really know if necessarily there's been ever an OST upload of just the gamepad screen in general. So get out there, get them uploads, OSTers, get them uploads out there for the gamepad version that's never been out there, because this version honestly sounds pretty weak. I really like the gamepad a whole lot better. But so as you can see here, I am online. And it's also showing other people that have been online. In fact, there's someone that's saying about, hey, I got Pretendo, so that's kind of neat that someone was able to do that. But this actually works without Pretendo. I'm not using Pretendo. This is an unmodded Wii, and that was the whole purpose, to just be able to see if this works. And it is kind of neat because you can still see when other people are playing games. You can see when they were last online. And kind of the sad thing as well is, like, everyone, like, on my friends list is, like, it says essentially over a month ago, and it's like, that's pretty sad. That's pretty depressing. I think, like, yeah, messages still show up and stuff like that. Like, I have so many memories of just, like, all these people that I was friends with, I guess technically still am friends with, and I try to contact them, you know, through different platforms later on, when Miiverse closed. By the way, Miiverse, that was one of the first things that Nintendo shut down when it came to the Wii U, along with the Wii U chat. I think Nintendo was just concerned about connectivity with other users. That's a whole rabbit hole we could probably go down later on, but not going to talk about that here. But yeah, that is kind of, you can still register friends as well. I don't know necessarily, like, I don't know anyone off the top of my head right now that has one, even though I have said before that it seems like more people I know had a Wii U than they didn't actually. But it is good to know that I can still make friends on here, even after the system is closed down. But eventually, you won't be able to connect to your friends list at all. Like, this is something you need the internet for. I believe it'll just say error that if you try to connect to it. So just being able to open this is important, unlike the 3DS, where you can open that regardless of if you have internet or not, because there's actually a local feature you can do with the friends list. So the friends list actually on the 3DS, that's how crazy how the 3DS literally can outlast, like, it might be the forever system. Like, even after there's like a frickin' nuclear apocalypse, like, the 3DS will still be able to Street Pass. It will still be able to use friends locally, which that might not seem the craziest, but it's like, that's insane. And, you know, there's just so many great games with it. That might be like the penultimate system Nintendo. It's too bad that, like, you know, there wasn't a ton of, like, other games like N64 and stuff, but with the modding community, it's great to see that, you know, we're getting Virtual Boy on there. So it's like 3DS might just, I think it might just be one of the coolest systems with how Street Pass and stuff. But yeah, no, so this is awesome. We can still use this online service. As far as I'm aware, I don't think there's any other service that actually can work when it comes to the you know, the online for the Wii U. Notifications as well. I don't know necessarily if this is something that's, you know, related to that, but it's kind of funny how this notification system, like, it was, like, never used at all for, like, years, and then it's like, you know, they say, oh, they used it for Miiverse comes to a close. I don't know if necessarily there's a date for this. No, there's no date for this. That was like the 2017. This is like 2016, 2017. And then it's like, you know, like, what was this, like 6 years later? You know, yeah, it's like they make this notification, like, it'll no longer possibly make purchases. And it's like, yeah, you know, that's it. And it's kind of sad. But it is kind of neat they still use notifications for Wii U. But, you know, that being said, then let's move on to the next system. Okay, so the 3DS launched in March of 2011. It did come with the Nintendo Network services. Unfortunately, they were quote-unquote shut down in 2024. But, big caveat here. Do you see how I have internet? It's still working. Now, I should say, you can still connect to the internet with your 3DS, any family systems, be it the 2DS, the 3DS, new 3DS XL, 3DS XL, new 2DS XL, all that fun stuff. And you can still use the internet browser. The internet browser, I should say really quick, will work as long as you have internet and when eventually websites decide to stop being updated because, well, it's not technically HDMI5 what I'm thinking in mind. But as you can see here, yeah, just simply like Googling something. That's still working right now. I'm connected to the internet. This is something that's not preloaded whatsoever. So yeah, the internet browser will still work. It just all depends whether or not it could work. It's a bit of a toss-up. And that will, I can guarantee this will be the last piece of the 3DS family of systems that will still work. And the internet browser can still work on other Nintendo consoles as well. So this is the, if you're wondering like, oh yeah, does the internet still work on the 3DS? The internet browser is an entirely different functionality where it all depends on the internet along with other websites, of course, like Google. You know, Google's going to update over time, you know, their website structure, the coding, HTML5 and stuff like that. Eventually, the 3DS won't support it. They won't support the older versions. It's not HTML5. I should know this because I had a bit of a major with HTML5, but or website coding in general, but no. But the 3DS still, or I should say the websites such as Google and their websites still support older formats, but as time goes on, security is going to be increased, and when security gets increased, they're going to update their system format. But, and the big thing here is you can still go to friends list. As you're seeing right here, it says one friend online, besides myself, of course. You can still connect with other users, and like you can friend different users. You know, let's say you want to, you know, register a friend or something. As you can see here, you can do internet, and you can type in their code. And in doing so, yeah, you can become friends with that person. It does also, of course, show when they last been online. If they, you know, weren't online, so let's say, example, you know, I close my system here, and it's like, oh, all of a sudden, 1 minute ago, you know, and I believe it still tracks up to like 9 days after that. It just, you know, shows like a blank spot. So definitely keep that one in mind. But yeah, it is entirely feasible and still possible to be able to connect to other users through friends list. You can, you know, watch what kind of game they're playing. Like if I went on the other system right here, and it will still show up notifications like when they pop up. A little orange indicator light will flash on the 3DS system, or the Street Pass. Spot Pass light is, I guess it's more like the friends system. I don't know. Let's say I clicked. It won't track DS and DSi games, but it will track 3DS systems of games. So I click a game, and all of a sudden it's saying that system's playing WarioWare Gold. So that's pretty cool. It can also track homebrew titles as well. Some of them don't really work the best, so keep that in mind with it appearing right there. And I think you can even add that with your favorite title as well. So yeah, keep that definitely in mind. But yes, no, it is entirely feasible for this to still work. And why does this still work? Well, some people said it's peer-to-peer. And I'll be honest, I haven't seen any evidence at all about whether or not that is the case. So it's like, as long as there is some system out there that still, you know, is active online, then you'll be able to, you know, be online with the other person. But I think it's due to the fact that one little piece of evidence right here that's staring you dead in the face. Now, if you try to connect online, let's say you click, you know that, and it's like, hey, this service has been discontinued. Thank you for using this service. A little repetitive right there, I'll say. But that's interesting, though, that it says that, because it's clearly, in order to get this message, you have to have connected with a server. So that tells me that the server is still up. It tells us in general that it's still up, but it's just preventing us from joining in. It's been discontinued. It hasn't been shut down. Now, I say this because you look at other Nintendo platforms, some of their servers are still up. And in this case, since we, try to do that, it just won't let us connect. It's, preventing us from getting in. So the servers are still up, which is exactly why we're still able to connect, using friends lists, stuff like that, seeing what other friends are doing. But Nintendo's just actively preventing us from playing games online. Now, eventually, one day, once these servers do officially go down, because I understand that people, they like to assume that they use the term shut down and stuff actively, but no, they actually haven't been. It will not say thank you for using this service that's been discontinued. It'll just simply give an error code. I'm sure it'll say something probably along the lines of no internet, and then eventually, we won't be able to connect with our friends online as well. But I guess a bit of a thing I will say real quick: if you want to be able to do this yourself, you need to go into settings and connect to the internet like you usually would. But I should also say as well that it might not work because routers are getting newer and newer, and being the fact that 3DS it just turned 14 years old last month. Yeah, I think in general Nintendo will just shut down the servers because of that. Like, it might not work in general, but thankfully my router still works, or I have a router that still works with my 3DS. I have heard some people before even the shutdown occurred with the quote-unquote shutdown, or I should say server connection prevention. I know that's a mouthful, but people just like to say shutdown, but it's not actually a shutdown, guys. It's just Nintendo throwing their weight around saying, hey, those games you paid for? Well, sure, they were free online servers, of course, as well, but it's like, yeah, we're going to prevent you from using that, and if you want to check out things like Luigi's Mansion again, buy your $60 game, but also spend $20 for online. Yeah, I know there's a free trial, but it's like, come on, Nintendo. But, I can definitely say it is still possible to this day to successfully connect to the internet using the 3DS family of systems. Very limiting stuff you can do, but it's still cool because you could still make friends and stuff like that. That's always a pretty big deal. But Nintendo, they always thought it was they thought it was a pretty big deal because you can get banned on Miiverse for sharing your friend code. What the heck, Nintendo? And so, we are back with the Nintendo DSi. So, services were of course shut down, but not everything was. As I have already shown in my eShop video, the eShop, or I should say, excuse me, the Nintendo DSi shop still works, man. I don't know, I just really wish Nintendo did stick with the eShop thing, but I guess it didn't come until 3DS, but, that's neither here nor there. That still works. You can still re-download titles. Keep that in mind. And on some systems, you can get the 3DS transfer tool. This isn't available on every tool or every system for whatever reason. I'm not exactly sure what the reasoning is for that, but yeah, keep that in mind. So you can still do things like that. You can still download things and see the cool little Super Mario Brothers 2 animation. But I should say the only download things as in the free stuff, not the stuff you can pay for. That was terminated, I believe, in 2017 or something along the lines, and yeah, the 3DS DSiWare was also terminated, so rest in pieces. But of course there is the web browser. Now the web browser, the thing about this, like I've said for every other thing, like I'm going to keep saying, is so long as the internet is online, the web browser will be online. You can use it. It just depends if the website hasn't been updated to a newer security level, or I guess coding structure. There's probably a proper name for this. I should say HTML5, something like that. But obviously the DSi, as far as I'm aware, doesn't support HTML5. So when websites get updated to that, so much it won't work anymore. But the web browser is entirely different, aspect of this, where that's dependent on other websites, not directly with Nintendo. What is directly with Nintendo is things like Flipnote Studio. Flipnote, Hitana, I probably pronouncing that very much incorrectly. That date, speaking of incorrect, that date is very wrong. But if we try to connect to that, we're now leaving Flipnote Studio. The following servers are provided by hitanaco.ltd. I'm not too sure about this. I probably shouldn't have researched beforehand. I've seen that name before. And there's also like a cafe that's like at the Nintendo Museum. I'm not exactly sure, what's the connection with that. Maybe someone can tell me in the comments, because this is something I'm willing to actually get a history lesson from someone in the comments. But as you can see, so it still is pinging something and saying the service for this has been discontinued, unfortunately. When this happened, when the shutdown happened for the DS, DSi, and I believe this is like one of the only like online services that is dedicated to the DSi. How interesting it is. I think, honestly, I do wonder if Flipnote would have been possible on the DSi, but yeah, unfortunately that doesn't work. But man, Flipnote Studio, like, talk about like how nostalgic this was, especially for me growing up in like the early 2010s and stuff like that, where this was like before YouTube. Talking about YouTube, being able to check this out, animate your own stuff. Before I had a ready access to YouTube, it was just nice going to internet connection, downloading whatever Flipnotes there was, and doing that. But what is nice is there is actually a revival called Studio Memo, I believe it's called, something along those lines. It's not affiliated with Nintendo, so there is disclaimers there in that case. But I know someone who has used it before. I should use it eventually someday. Haven't yet for this system. It's a very simple like adjustment. But I'm not here to plug that whatsoever. That's for you to find out before. So that is at least nice. That's staying live, because Float Studio, it's so awesome. It's amazing, and especially just simply having a DSi. Maybe I'll tap more into that someday and make like an entire channel career based off of that, like some YouTubers have. But yeah, no. And then of course, as I mentioned with DS services, which is mostly because the DSi was like 90%, maybe even 99 more like DS, and it was like 1% Flipnote. So yeah, but anyways, onwards. And we are back. Yes, indeed, that was a pun. To the Wii. So when it comes to the Wii, yes, the internet browser will still work. Unfortunately, I don't think I have this on my Wii U side of the Wii, but I guess that's not the biggest of deal. But it's a little more complicated to use that. It's possible to use it, but once again, though, like I said before, the internet browser for any console that all depends on whether or not other companies will update their websites to be too modern, but it is still possible, I'm sure, to access very old websites. It's going to be a bit of a nightmare. Now, of course, we can still access the Wii Shop channel, as I did an entire video on that. I'm getting a little repetitive at this point. You get the idea when it comes to the Wii Shop channel. Still download things, still access things. Because I'm just curious whether or not, for example, check out Mario Sports Mix from Square Enix. Great game, by the way, to see if the servers, it will ping anything, or it just simply says error, and that will determine if the servers are technically still online. I have a feeling they're not, because actually there was something else I was going to do for this video that was shut down recently. I'm surprised this thing's not screaming at me for having a class controller put in here. I like how they're asking all this, but I know for a fact it's not going to work. Okay, so it is saying it has been discontinued, so that does make me think that there's some sort of server it's still pinging, and it seems to be similar to the Wii and 3DS. Which does make sense. I like how the game has to entirely restart. Now, there has been a revival for the Wii Online. Pretty much everything has actually been revived at this point. Mario Kart Wii missions, Mario Sports Mix, as we're seeing there. Lots of cool, amazing things. So I think between the Wii U, 3DS, DS, Wii, I guess the Wii and DS eras is like pretty much like 90% preserved. Might even be like completely at this point. Like there's a lot of stuff. Like it's becoming more and more like the Wii Shop channel has just been revived recently in a sense. So yeah, I would say, but out of all the consoles, the Wii and DS, I would say, is probably the most accessible now online. So have fun gaming online now. Okay, so the last one we're going to look at is Nintendo Switch Online, and honestly, it's probably the most boring out of all of them. I mean, I don't know. Really, it's the shortest one we're going to look at, too. Like, obviously, besides playing games online, while there is some fantastic titles on here, I really wish, there was some stuff of old that was, like, brought back. And especially since, it costs money as well. Remember the time when Nintendo was, like, it was free? Like, this Nintendo's, technically it wasn't their first paid service, but it was, like, it's kind of annoying when things go from being free to cost. And, like, honestly, there really felt like there was no excuse for the Switch. Like, yeah, they did provide, retro games, but I didn't really think that was... I don't know. Like, yeah, you could have bought them again at something different, but I guess that's already been said. And, what else, like, even can you do with this? There's a news app, and it's so weird, like, this news app might be, like, the most underutilized thing. I remember when I used this a long time ago, but now it's like, yeah, that's kind of cool, I guess, but at the same time, now Nintendo has a news app itself, like, on phone. Nintendo Now, or whatever it was called. I downloaded it for a bit and stopped using it because I'm not on my phone all the time. I'll tell you that. I'll use it again whenever I get the chance. I don't know. I guess I don't really need to warrant that, but it's like something I guess I real quick will mention is if you go to friends list, what's cool is I was showing about how 3DS and Wii U, those systems, those network systems still work. Now, part of me thinks the reason why they still work probably, you know, yet to be established it's a peer-to-peer thing, is because, well, check it out. Like, you can still get friend requests from users you're connected your account with on the Wii U and 3DS. So I think that's pretty freaking cool, I gotta say the least, like, compared to everything. So, yeah, that could be a reason why, because they want people to migrate their friends over from the Wii U and 3DS and stuff like that. Granted, I personally don't exactly have, like, a ton. It's people I've met, you know, through Miiverse, which that shut down anyways. So, you know, yeah. But that being said then, that's Nintendo's online services, all sorts of just stuff that there was. So thanks for watching the video and making it all the way to the end, or maybe you skipped all the way in. I don't really know, but whatever the case may be, I do apologize if things kind of seemed all over the place. I've been trying to experiment with my content just because, well, YouTube's crazy and it tends to be all over the place. But if you'd like to see a different type of editing style I've done before, which is like crazy out there, click the video in the top right. I used to have a lot more of those videos public before, but I may make them public once again. But yeah, no, with that being said, thanks once again. Subscribe, maybe not. And yeah, you have a great rest of your night, day, time zone. Bye-bye.